Hey everybody, Captain Joe here, Carolina Traditions Guide Company. Going to try to finish up that popping cork tutorial video series that I was working on. This will be the third video. I'll try to label them so when I get them up on Facebook. Got some of my gear here. Going to try to give you a little bit more of a better presentation of some of my stuff. We're going to talk about popping corks. We're going to finish up from video 1 and video 2 where I was actually kayak fishing and talking a little bit about popping corks. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into it. Alright, so Captain Joe here, Carolina Traditions Guide Company. These are the crabs that I was using. This is a smaller version. I have the medium size still tied on. That's the larger version. Got a glow belly. Looks like Atlantic blue crab is the pattern on that crab right there. I wouldn't work that under a popping cork. That's a little heavy for the cork. You want to keep your cork stuff around 1/4 ounce. This little guy, however, would work great for those flood tide fishing if you're going to throw that popping cork. You can run them with jig heads. You want to keep those under 1/4 ounce too. Some of my favorite jig heads from Slayer right there. Slayer Incorporated Lures. Chris Sensi down there in Florida. A lot of times in the summer, I'll use like anywhere from 20 to 30 pounds. If I'm doing a lot of red fishing, I'll run some 30-pound. I do use a lot of fluorocarbon, but I also will use a good quality mono as well. Very key with your top waters too to run your monofilament. Got some corks I like to use. It's your 4 Horsemen corks, another product made in America. Here's the high water that I was running the other day. You can kind of check out some of the details on here. You got some pretty nice features. It's a titanium flexible frame in the middle of it there. You got your sinker down on the bottom, gives you great casting distance. You got these 2 polycarbonate balls. They really put off a lot of great sound. And then this is running up to the crab. This one's called Spot, and I hate that I threw away the packaging on these, but it's about 1/4 ounce. It's a 7'6" star sequence, 6 to 12 or 6 to 14. That's the 6 to 14. I like that little bit more of a faster taper, a little bit more backbone when I'm drum fishing for those good hook sets. They got hard mouths, and these are some nice custom corks that a buddy down at Redfish Row did for me down here. Redfish Row corks. They got great sound too, and so this is an illustration of your 2 primary types of corks. Does some cool custom labeling there. It's upside down, Carolina Traditions Guide Company. I'll show you a little bit of my rigging here. One key that I like to use is the loop knot, and I'm going to show you a couple of my different lures here. You got the loop knot on there, gives that crab or shrimp or shad extra action when you're popping that cork, because you got to figure, when we go back over here to look at this, you got your long leader. This is floating in the water like so, and it's making sound as it goes, and of course you can pop it and it gives it that sound like a feeding redfish or bait feeding on the surface, depending on how hard you pop it. The high waters come with a barrel swivel up top, which I like. That helps with your braid not getting wrapped around. I've never had a problem with my braid getting wrapped around any of these. He also gives you a barrel swivel on the bottom. There's a lot of difference between a good quality cork. You can kind of get the sound out of there. And I've run these corks until there's about half of that egg sinker left on them. I mean, like I got some that I was running all season long last year. Still got them over there on my rods. Anyway, you don't have to just slam this cork all the time. Like I was telling you in the video, a lot of times it's just floating. It's making noise, it's keeping your lure suspended, makes it like whatever you're pulling underneath of it is actually moving. It just, it's a great way to cover a lot of ground. Or you can just kind of keep these passively in the water in a rod holder behind the boat when you're covering ground on that trolling motor, beating that marsh system. Most of my drum rods I'm running 15-pound braid. That's how I like to run them. I don't run a leader with my corks, but I do use a leader a lot of times. This one over here is another good example. Pretty much one of my standard summer setups. You see, got probably 25, 26 inches of leader on here. One of my absolute very most favorite lures. This is a new color out from Voodoo this year. Got a loop knot tied on there. I use Lefty's Perfect Loop or the Perfection Loop. When these shrimp hit the bottom, they hit like this and they disturb the mud just like, you know, a real shrimp does when it's in the water, and it has a little bit of buoyancy, so it kind of stays up like this. Your tail is moving around. They advertise these lures at about catching 150 fish capability. The eyes glow when you have the chartreuse tail. Chartreuse tail glows. Yes, I think redfish like glowy stuff. Got a nice sharp hook there. They last a really long time. I fish these lures until the tail just hangs, you know, like this, and they still continue to catch fish. They still do the job. They do get discolored after a while. You know, it's got a slot in the belly for you to put your Procure in, right here. I'll fill that up with inshore saltwater Procure, and I'll let it roll. And when that shrimp's moving under the water, that tail's moving, attracting attention, putting out scent. You got your cork up here. It's bobbing, making noise. The way he does his corks, he's got several small beads on here. They're all making noise. That travels pretty fast in the water. Covers a lot of distance. So the theory is that even if you have a trout or a drum or a flounder in the vicinity, if you're not popping it, that little tapping noise is going to attract your attention. Shout out to Captains for Clean Water down in Florida. Something I'm a big advocate of is, you know, if we talk a lot about protecting our resources, well, we need to be focused on ways to do sustainable industry and sustainable development while still protecting our estuaries and water systems. And especially if you're a drum fisherman or year-round trout fisherman, you spend a lot of time in these water systems. So in here I have some halo shads. I have the ½ ounce and the ¼ ounce. This is a very popular one for me. I think they call it, it's a new penny variant anyway, and the water looks a lot like a juvenile redfish. You see it's kind of got a little bit of brown on it. I don't know why it's on the belly and not on the back, but they work quite well. This also works quite well. Green with the pink tail, chartreuse with pink tail, and the pink with the chartreuse tail. As your shad first start to show up early season, these are very popular, and I'll run these under a popping cork, primarily this size. Run these under a popping cork, loop knot to the eye, and 18-27 inch leader, like I was telling you guys. Sometimes very effective, especially with those early season trout as the grass shad show up. Here we go, my Voodoo box. This is where all the magic happens. You're gonna say, my God, that's a bunch of shrimp, but I'm gonna tell you what, I go through every single one of them in the summertime. They just, you know, wear out. We're gonna pick, that's the Voodoo Vixen. It's like a little bait fish pattern. I also run that under a popping cork. I prefer to run the smaller size shrimps under a popping cork. As you saw, this is the original Voodoo shrimp. Very great looking, looks very much like a summer shrimp right there. I even have some very small ones. I do not like to use these with redfish because the younger drum usually eat these, and you need to cut the lure to save the fish, which is perfectly fine, but if I can avoid that, I try to, because it adds up at the end of the day. Also, you know, one of my other favorites is Voodoo makes a shad like the Halo shad, made out of the same like 8-10x material. Very great action in the water, and this, you know, will outlast the Halo shad probably 10 to 1. You know, about 4 trout on a Halo shad by Billy Bay and it's done. Whereas those will catch, you know, this one right here has probably caught, or it may not be this one, it's this one right here. This one was one of my regular lineups last year. It was used, abused, still very sharp hook on there, and it probably caught 60 or 70 trout on it when I was running it in the clear waters. And you can pull these by themselves. They all work really good. You know, I got the Voodoo Vixen in one of my favorite colors, the Shrimp Poor Boy here. Great summertime color for intermediate clear water. Dark water, I prefer these patterns. This has done really well for me in the tannic stained water. If it has clarity but a nice stain behind it, done really well for me. These are some lures that I pull behind underneath my corks, and I work the different ways that I was talking about. All these have been very productive for me, and you know, they're what I rely on all summer long to do the job. So anyway, that's a little bit of some of my tackle that I like to use. You can find pretty much all those products at Chase Tails Outdoors, a working guide out of there. Shout out to my buddy Brandon at Fathom Lures. He makes some pretty cool stuff too. Save the Season, made in America. Slayer Lures, Four Horsemen, High Water Corks, Redfish Row Corks. All these products are excellent products, things that I love to use, turn my clients on to, and they work for me day in and day out in the summertime. I'm sure there's a lot more I can cover with the popping cork, but you know, I just wanted to show you all some of the stuff because I learned from the seminars people like to see a little more firsthand some of the products I like to use. And you guys can get up with me, give me a shout out, come by the tackle shop. I'll set it up for you, show you how it works, and hopefully put you out on some great days fishing. Thanks, folks. Carolina Joe, been called that up in New Jersey. Carolina Traditions Guide Company, Captain Joe. Thanks, y'all. Come see me.